Science, exercise, nutrition, health, energy, passion. 1 year, no beer. This is the 1 year no beer podcast, where you will find all the latest tips, tricks, and hacks for a way to live better.
Welcome to the 1 year no beer podcast. My name is Rory William Fletcher Luke John Fairbairns.
Oh, and mine is Andrew William Ramage.
We've both got William.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, cool.
My name, actually, Rory, means Red King. William shortens down to Willie. And Fairbairns means pretty child. So I used to be Red King Willie Pretty Child.
Nice for you.
Yeah. You can see why I got bullied at school. But hey, you know when you look back at your past and you go, wow, I was tortured at school for being a bit of a weirdo. But that's who made me home today. That just fills me full of gratitude. What about you?
Yes.
Because otherwise none of this would have been possible if I hadn't been tortured at school.
Exactly. We wouldn't be here right now. Well done, bullies.
Yeah. Welcome back to the 1 year no beer podcast. Really excited to have you on. Week 3! I'm so excited about today. I'm generally excited anyway. I must say that every week. I'm so excited.
No, you do. Yeah. But
must
we
say
are
something
excited.
else.
And actually, we're still by the BBC. We've obviously moved in. The BBC can't get rid of us. It's like being on Strictly.
Every week.
We keep getting
Just
voted in.
Stop telling them. Change this. We could hang up something else in the background here.
Yeah. And
For those of you tuning on YouTube, we are broadcasting to you live from the Holiday Inn in Manchester.
in Salford, Manchester.
I'm very excited to bring you this guest, Naveen Jain. Do you know that Naveen Jain is the only man on the planet with permission to land on the moon?
I know, this is just, some of this stuff just blows my mind.
Yeah, Naveen Jain came from an incredibly poor background, abject poverty in India, moved across to the US with pretty much nothing, has grown 7 businesses, he's a billionaire. One of his businesses he ran alongside Bill Gates, and he's currently the only man with permission to land on the moon. And he said in the next 5 years, he's going to be there. So he reckons next year he's going to land on the moon. Well, you've got all of this to come. I'm not going to ruin the podcast because you've got all of this to come. It's so exciting. But the thing, what has somebody who landing on the moon got to do about alcohol? Well, I found his conversation, I met him, I found his conversation so inspiring that I needed you all to hear it. And the reason why I needed you all to hear it is because, well, alcohol for so many of us is this thing that is sort of numbing our life. It's holding us back, and we don't realize it until we get rid of it. And for many of you listening, you will have already gone past this and through this shift with us, and I'm so happy and pleased and proud and for you that you've come so far and that you've had this life change, and now you've got the capacity to be thinking, what do I want to do while I'm here on this planet? What is it that I want to achieve? What impact do I want to have? And that is what Naveen Jain is all about. He is about having an impact. He is about thinking beyond your wildest dreams and going out there and making it happen. And so I'm really excited about this podcast interview. I think there'll be so many nuggets for you. He's just got so much passion that it just spills through. So I'm really, really excited to bring you that. Do you want to say something?
No, I'm just enjoying. I'm actually looking forward to this podcast more than any other because I haven't heard it myself yet, and I know a bit about Naveen, and he's just such an inspirational character. It's that moonshot, isn't it?
The moonshot.
Literally, the moonshot.
So, and our moonshot, as if you don't know, but we will remind you, our moonshot is to transform the world's relationship with alcohol. That is our moonshot. And our goal for 2018 is to impact 1 million people.
Beautiful.
1 million people. And with your help, we can do that. All you need to do is buy the book, share a post, share the podcast,
send us photos,
leave a review.
The book. Yeah.
That's it. That's all you need to do, and we can together impact 1 million people. Awesome. That's easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
an easy thing to do.
Achievable.
Even there, then we are doing this all together. They have a part of this.
Well, exactly, but
so key.
On that note, the community, you guys, podcast listeners, YouTube watchers, 1 year no beer community, we're in it together. This is such an embryonic thing. It's at the start of something really powerful and really special.
Yeah.
So you're all very much a part of it with us.
Come and get involved.
Exactly.
So anyway, on to the incredible interview with a superhero of mine, Naveen Jain. So Naveen, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you. How are you doing?
Well, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So Naveen, I recently met you at the Genius Network event in Arizona, where you didn't just inspire me, you absolutely lit up my soul. You know, you so much energy on the stage, and I just had to get you on the podcast. So thank you very much for inspiring me. And you talked about your moonshot. I said to you that my moonshot was to transform the world's relationship with alcohol. Mm-hmm. Explain a bit more about what moonshots are, where it came from, and what yours is.
Yeah. So the moonshots are really these audacious goals that people have that most other people believe are absolutely crazy or unachievable. And to me, the power of technology is allowing individuals like you and I to be able to do things that only the superpowers could do before. And that's literally landing on the moon or solving the problem of global grand challenges. So think about it. It is not going to be the Obamacare or Trump care or Putin care that's going to solve our healthcare crisis. It's going to be someone like you saying, you know what, enough is enough, and I'm going to go solve the problem of people's relationship with alcohol, or someone waking up and saying, I'm going to solve the problem of drug addiction, or someone's going to say, you know what, depression or obesity or diabetes is my moonshot. The moonshot is, that means something everyone says, are you crazy? That will never happen. That is a moonshot, right? So my moonshot are actually two of them. One of them is a literal moonshot of landing on the moon, which is going to happen next year. And the second moonshot is more symbolic of what if we can create a world where chronic illness simply is a matter of choice, not a matter of bad luck. That means what if we can find everything that's happening inside our body and to be able to control it and own it. It's my body. I want to be the CEO of my own health. I don't want to outsource my body and my health, my healthy and happiness to someone else.
Absolutely. I mean, what an incredible thing. People will be trying to digest that into their brain right now. So what does that mean to be able to put your health into your own hands?
So it's very interesting is that so far what's happening is that we as humans feel that when we are sick, we have no idea what to do and you feel helpless. And any time in life when you are helpless, someone is going to victimize you. And that's how the world works. When people feel there is somebody out there who has less information, you always get victimized by someone who is smarter, at least in the sense of having a little bit more knowledge, right? Our human health, to some extent, is such a complex thing. At the same time, it is the easiest thing to understand. Everyone has been telling us that we are our genes, right? Our genes make us who we are. And it turns out that every scientific literature in the last 5 years has proven that completely wrong. So if you look at just the human cells in our body, we are less than half human. And you say, well, it's not the human cells we should be worried about. It is our genes. You don't understand the genes. And I say, I do understand. And if you look at from a gene expression perspective, the human DNA only produces 20,000 genes. The microbes, the microbiome, which are the trillions of microorganisms living inside us, they produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes. Think for a second, less than 1% human. So when we are so proud of who we are, from a nature's perspective, we are a portable container for microorganisms, is who we are, right? I mean, these microorganisms, people say, oh my God, where are they? The fact is they're all over us, they're inside us. This is what makes us who we are. So in fact, the difference between you and I or any two people, we have almost identical genes. 99% of our DNA is common. Less than 5% of our microbiome is common. And that's the reason a diet that's good for you is not going to be good for me, and a diet that's good for me today won't be good for me 3 months from now because my microbiome is constantly changing. So the thing is, that is something that changes all the time as we change our food, the people we meet, the hands we shake, the air we breathe. Every one of the things changes our microbiome. So that means we are can control our own destiny. In fact, the research is so interesting that I read every single day. There is more research showing that breast cancer, for example, is caused by the microbiome, not by the genes, right?
Wow.
Cancer is caused by the microbiome. In fact, every day there is a new research that shows that not only the cancer is caused by microbiome, the cure for cancer, whether it works or does not work, depends on microbiome. So just last week, there were two research that came out that when you do a chemotherapy, whether chemotherapy is going to work or actually going to kill you, depends on your microbiome. Same thing with immunotherapy. Whether your immunotherapy is going to work or not work depends on your microbiome. So what's really interesting is these microbiome in our gut are using the vagus nerve to communicate between the brain and the gut, right? So from any chronic disease that you know of today, from Parkinson's disease to Alzheimer, autism, depression, anxiety, and you start to think about obesity and diabetes and autoimmune diseases, every one of them is directly influenced by our microbiome. And yet, when you go to a doctor and you tell the doctor, hey, what should I do? The first thing they say, let's give you the antibiotics. So kill all the microbiome, right? So, in fact, what's puzzling to me is despite all the research, even when you graduate today from the medical school, they don't teach you about microbiome. Even though 99%...
We'll have to wait another 10 years for that, right?
Right, and that's my point. And actually, there's a reason for that. It's not just that they are dumb. All of these medical schools are funded by the pharmaceutical companies. And the pharmaceutical companies have really become the parasite on humanity. But the way they look at the chronic diseases is it's a cash cow. They don't want you to die, but they don't want you to ever be cured. They want a subscription business. What they're looking for is they suppress the symptom. So that means you have to take their drug for the rest of your life. And every symptom they suppress, they cause 3 more symptoms. Surprise, surprise, they have a drug for each one of them now, right? So my point is, this system has become...
And this is, in certainly in America, you see people taking tons of pills on a daily basis, 5, 10 pills, it's like this one's for this, and then this one's for the next bit, and this one causes this, so you're taking another one and another one. Unfortunately, my father, he has dementia, and he's now already on that stage where he's got to take this one, and then this one, and this one, and this one, and you're like, well, actually, how many of those do you really need? Because actually, some of them are to counteract the effects of the first ones. It's just such a shame.
And honestly, the problem you start to find is that all of these diseases, we may see them much later, but these diseases start much, much earlier. So if you just Google Parkinson's and, for example, microbiome, you will find that these diseases start 15, 20 years before you see the first symptom, and the first thing you see is in your gut. Right? So the microbes release the enzymes that actually go into our blood. These called metabolites. They cross the boundary, and these metabolites are the ones that are causing the misfolding of the protein. These are the guys who are training our immune system. These are the guys who are controlling our gene expression. So think about it. You may have a gene, but they are controlling whether they are expressed or not expressed. To a large extent, we think our gut is our secondary brain. What if we were wrong? What if that is the primary brain? And the thing sitting on top of our shoulder is simply the puppet. And
the
these
distraction.
Guys and they're pulling the strings from the gut and saying, do this now. So your craving don't start in your brain. The craving starts in your gut. The microbes that are craving for the sugar, they're craving for the food that you want. When they are hungry, you feel hungry. When they are full, you feel full, right? So my point is, think about it. We humans are only evolved, give or take, 250,000 years ago, right? The microbes, the microbial ecosystem has been on Earth for billions of years. What if they created us humans so they can essentially be portable, that we became a portable container for them?
Wow.
That we feed them. Basically, we live for them, and in turn, they provide the nutrient so they can keep this container alive for a while.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This is a bit like the aliens that are actually inside us, and we didn't realize that they've been there all along. There you go.
But interesting thing is, just like when we look up the space, we used to think we were alone. We used to think the Earth is the center of our solar system and everything revolves around Earth, until we realize we are really not only not alone, we are not the center of the universe. And that same thing may be true inside us, that just like the Hubble telescope start to show us that every square inch of area has billions and billions of galaxies, right? And the same thing happening inside us, that, if a tiny in the, our large intestine, a tiny area that have trillions of these organisms, and they're not parasites, by the way, don't think of them as parasites. These are the symbiotic relationship. So when we feed them, they in turn produce things like short chain fatty acid that our body and our brain needs. They produce the vitamin B, they produce the vitamin K, they're producing the nutrients that our body needs, because that symbiotic relationship is what keeps us healthy. And what starts to happen is, when we are not taking good care of them, our guest in our gut, when we're not taking good care of them, they become imbalanced and they are at unease. When they are at unease, what do you think we get? We get disease. Disease is that things are not being at ease, right? And that is caused by our microbiome being completely imbalanced. And what happens is, it doesn't matter what diet you eat. When you're only eating one set of diet, they're only feeding one set of microbiome and other ones are not getting fed. Guess what happened? They start to take over. An interesting thing about these microbes are they communicate amongst themselves, and they have something called quorum sensing. That means how many of us are there, and their behavior starts to change. They start to form the biofilm, and then they become essentially much more devastating to our health as they start to grow in larger quantity. Otherwise, what happens is, they constantly are in balance with each other. So you feed the different ones and they keep each other under control. So no one is taking over. And, so the point really is, it is all about just like our atmosphere, just like our environment. If we take one thing out, it's not just taking one thing out. It imbalances the ecosystem, and the whole ecosystem, it starts to fall apart. So whether you take mosquitoes or whether you take fish, and you say, oh, what difference do they make if I just take mosquito? Well, guess what? It changes the ecosystem, right? And that's really is, our body is our ecosystem. And any point of time when we change that ecosystem by not feeding it properly, or by, in fact, even eating the food that is, full of pesticides like glyphosate. I mean, pesticides are there to kill the insects. What do you think they do when you eat the food? They kill the microbes, right? I mean, so the point is when you take antibiotics, you may get the good guys, bad guys, but you also get all the good guys, right? It's like throwing a nuclear bomb inside your body and saying, kaboom, right?
Float. Fix yourself. Yeah. Interesting. So linking that, talking about alcohol for a second, and I did a quick bit of research before we jumped on, and it said people who are risky drinking, and I mentioned to you just before that in a survey in the UK, 26.5% of people said that they had drunk more than 14 units in a week in the last month. So that's risky drinking level, which is really not that much, as we quantified. And it says that it can dramatically affect the gut microbiome, the gut flora. This prompts or can prompt a domino effect where one bad event is the catalyst for another. Alcohol consumption alters the gut flora, leading to leaky gut syndrome, leading to bacterial translocation, leading to inflammatory changes in the liver and elsewhere. So really, drinking too much makes your gut spill out all over the rest of your internal organs. Lovely.
Well, I mean, that's not a good visual, but that's really what's happening is that, if you think about it, the minute you start to change your gut flora, and, it obviously either stays in balance, or once it starts to leak into the blood through the leaky gut syndrome, or through how microbes produce these something called metabolites, they get absorbed in the blood. Our immune system, so 70% of all the lining of our immune system actually around the gut lining. So 70% of our immune system is our gut, right? Our immune system is constantly being trained by these microbes. At any point of time when you start to have the microbes going into the blood, you get the chronic inflammation. And chronic diseases may have a different name, but they all have one thing in common. It all comes from chronic inflammation. So when you have a chronic inflammation, low-grade inflammation, in some people that may show up as Alzheimer or Parkinson's or dementia. In other people, it may show up as cancer. It may show up in diabetes in one, obesity in another. It may show up as autoimmune diseases in one. It may show up as depression in someone else, right? Depression is very interesting. People think that depression is something that happens in your brain. Depression actually starts in your gut. What happens when you're depressed? You eat, right? When you are anxious, you get butterflies in your stomach. You don't get butterflies in your head, right? The point is, even our mother knew more about science than our doctors do. Even mother says, listen to your gut, Rory. Listen to your gut. Right?
So true, so true.
Right. My point is, she knew more about science and the gut than you go to a doctor. And if you go to a doctor today and you tell the doctor, hey, I was just reading about this thing about leaky gut. And you know what he's going to tell you? There is no such thing as leaky gut because there is no drug for leaky gut.
Yeah. I've just realized you're on to the next big thing. It's not mindfulness. It's gutfulness. Right? We're going to have to get more in touch with our guts.
That's right. I mean, actually, we do. What do we tell people when they really want to be in tune with themselves? We say, listen to your gut. Do a gut check, right? I mean, all these terms evolved over, hundreds of years for a reason, because our ancestors maybe knew more about science than we actually are learning today.
Very true. Very true. I said the same thing when I met the Dalai Lama. I said, we're basically teaching people what the Buddhist people have been teaching them for years.
Yes.
So, yeah. Spot on with that.
So addiction is really, to some extent, is caused by the imbalance of microbiome. So when you are addicted, in fact, it's very, very hard because somehow you think it's in your head. It's not in your head. In fact, the people who are seriously addicted, you can't even change the microbiome. It is so effed up by that time that you have to give them the IV just to get the microbiome in balance, right? And a lot of the times what they're finding is that the microbial transplant, which is really a technical name for really poop transplant, right? The microbial transplant is an interesting way of getting rid of a lot of the risky behavior and getting them into a more normal behavior. And they did that thing, as we were talking about before that. They did a study, very interestingly. They grew the mice that were completely no microbiome by killing their microbiome, giving them heavy doses of antibiotics. And then they took the poop from a thin person and a poop from a fat person. When they gave the poop from a fat person to the mice that has no microbiome, the mice became fat. When they gave the poop from a thin person to the mice became thin, right? So the idea is that literally that our microbiome gets transplanted. The human microbiome can be transplanted in a completely different species and they behave differently, right? So people say, how can the microbiome control our brain and our behavior? And yet we forget. Have you seen the dog with rabies? The first thing the dog does is starts to bite, right? It changes the behavior because these rabies want to spread, right? So they control our brain. And it turns out they did the amazing research. These microbiome use our vagus nerve and they use what they call the microRNA interference. So they actually control our microRNA both in our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex. Wow. That means not only anxiety and fear, but also our decision making is controlled by these microbiome. That's and amazing. Most people forget that even the human cell that we are so proud of, what are the part of the human cell, right? The human cell consists of our energy factory. And what's the energy factory? It's called mitochondria. And mitochondria is actually the ancient bacteria that was captured by the human cell that provides us the energy. So think about that for a second here, that our cells itself contains a separate genes that are bacterial genes separate from the genes that we get from mom and dad, right?
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I think that I must share the study. If you can pass it over after the call, we'll add it into the links about the affecting the amygdala and the decision making.
Yeah, happy to do that.
We talk about that a lot with trying to change your relationship with alcohol and something that's just habitual, and it's less about addiction and more about just habit, and that's what we're dealing with most people, stuck in a routine, peer pressure, habit. And I guess that I'm going to lead away back for a second because this is not all what you do. Viome. While we're talking about that, Viome If we wanted to go and test more and find out more about our gut bacteria, how would we get involved?
So obviously, as I mentioned, that I started this company with a simple goal. What if we can create a world where chronic illness really becomes a matter of choice? So that is actually now you can buy it in UK and Canada and US by simply going to Viome.com. That's V as in Victor, IOME.com. And when you go to Viome.com, you can actually sign up and understand exactly what's happening inside you. But more than just understanding, we tell you exactly what you have to do to get your body in balance. That means we will tell you what food you should be eating, what you should be minimizing, what are the supplements that your body needs and what you're pissing away and actually no good, right? And what kind of probiotics you may or may not need. So we don't sell you any of the stuff. So we are very unbiased. Our job is to tell you what your body needs, and then you can go out and purchase that from anyone. So our recommendations are actionable, something you can do. And we're really hoping that as more and more people are joining the system, each one of the person who joins gets better. But more importantly, it helps the humanity because everything is driven by the artificial intelligence. So every single person that joins not only helps them, but they help the humanity get better because our system is getting better and better and more accurate every single day.
Awesome. Yes, so that's definitely something we need to get sorted. I think we've got a specific link as well for OYNB members, which is viome.com/OYNB. So there you go. We've already got that all pitched up. But so this wasn't the only thing you've been doing. We're going the other way around, but that's perfect because I'm ADHD. So tell us a bit of background. You grew up in India, and how did you come to moons and all? Give us a bit of backstory.
Well, that is, to some extent, my story is of a typical, what I would call the American dream. Grew up in India. We were very, very poor. The days we didn't have food to eat. We didn't have a place we called home. We moved from village to village to village. And that most of the studies were done in very rural areas. And I came to the United States about 35 years ago with absolutely nothing. And we had $5 with me and, just a dream of making a good life. And to large extent, I would say that the society, or I would say the people in the society have been just amazing to embrace a person who came from outside their world and gave me everything that I needed to thrive in this country. And to large extent, the things I'm doing now is simply a way to pay back the debt that I owe to society. Right? God has been very kind to us. I mean, with absolutely nothing today, every company, knock on the wood, every company that we have done has been wildly successful. This is my 7th venture.
Well done. Right? I'm on my 6th venture, so I used to call myself a serial failpreneur.
Well, interesting.
Hopefully this one will work.
Entrepreneurs never fail. The humans fail, the entrepreneurs pivot, right? So you only fail when you give up, and you haven't given up yet, so you're still on to your first venture.
Very true.
You're just pivoting 6 times, right?
Yeah.
So the point what I'm trying to make is that, so for me, both going to the moon, which is my other venture called Moon Express, which is about saving humanity from potential extinction. So imagine if we all are currently living on a single spacecraft. This is spacecraft we lovingly call planet Earth, right? What if our planet get destroyed because we get hit by a large asteroid? Or we humans are very capable of doing things that most people don't imagine, which is to destroy the planet ourselves, right? Then we all as humanity would just completely disappear. Won't it be nice if we are able to, at least distribute ourselves on the moon as the first stepping stone, and then to the Mars and the Europa and Titan and all the places that we want to be? There is no reason why we should be confined to one single planet. Because at the end of the day, the humans didn't quite just say, let's live in Africa in the savannas, and that was plenty good enough for us. We are explorers, more than explorers. Our limitations don't lie in what can be done. Our limitations lies in our mind. When we believe something is impossible, it becomes impossible only for us and no one else. Right? The mindset of scarcity is what allows people to somehow fight over things that are actually in abundance. but we don't believe they are in abundance, right? So we fight over land, we fight over water, and we fight over energy. And all you have to do is look up and say, we are a tiny pale blue dot just in our own galaxy. And every square inch of galaxy has billions of these galaxies in our universe. And there may be billions of universe in this multiverse. Where is that scarcity we talk about? It's nothing but full of energy. Our solar system is one of the billions of solar systems just in our galaxy. And even on planet Earth, every 90 minutes, more solar energy falls on planet Earth than we use in the whole year. Where is the scarcity, right? People say, scarcity comes because we humans are so greedy that we'll always want more. It doesn't matter how much we have. Until we remind ourselves that look at air and oxygen in the air. We don't fight over it. We sit down in a large conferences, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 sitting on a stadium, and we don't fight over oxygen, or we don't fight over air. What if the energy was the next air? What if the food was the next air? That means we can have abundance of food and abundance of water, where it is free to everyone, is democratized and is demonetized. Imagine that world. And why can't we create that world? Why can't you, I, and anyone listening to it? There's absolutely nothing that we can't do.
Awesome. So inspiring. Every time you talk, you just get me all excited. I'm going to go change the world. I'm sure if you're listening out there, you're feeling the same way, because Naveen is a very inspiring chap. But I love that when I've heard you mention that before about the air and about abundance of energy and thinking about abundance. And in reality, I was reading about some nano research and building nano factories. And for you guys, if you don't know what a nano factory is, it's building on an atomic scale. So putting atoms together, and we're all made of atoms. Everything is made of atoms. So therefore, you can create anything from anything. It's literally like having the Star Trek machine where they go, and I'll have chicken, please, and there's chicken. And I'm thinking, how far away is that? We have people all over the world working on nanotechnology and nano manufacturing. In fact, they put the first robots in the human being a few months ago, I believe. Nano robots were put into human.
Well, actually, they did the thing in a pill format, so you can take these pills that can monitor what other prescriptions you're taking or not taking. So it's a big brother inside you now, right? But fact, what you're talking about is, forget the nano factories. The biofactories are the thing that are already happening. So instead of raising the cattle just to eat the beef, because a single cattle, the amount of damage it does to the environment, crazy, and the amount of food it needs in terms of the agriculture, amount of water they need is so much. What if we can take a stem cell from a cow and just only grow the muscle tissues? And that's already starting to happen. There are several companies in US alone that are building these, what I would say, biofactories. That means you can have chicken leg one day and a frog leg another day, or you can have the cows, they're all coming from the same place, and there's not a single cattle to be raised, right?
Yeah, fantastic. And we solve world hunger.
Yeah, we solve world hunger. And secondly, imagine now humans. We will be growing our own organs, right? We'll be growing our heart, we'll be growing our liver, we'll be growing our kidneys, we'll be growing everything else. So go drink as many pints as you want. You will have
Don't worry about it. Just live a little.
Waiting for you someday.
Dan Sullivan was talking about living to 156. Because he's going to do what he needs to make sure he does live to 156. Have you decided how old you're going to be when you die?
The interesting thing is there's no limitations to how long can we live. If you think about...
So you're going to live infinitely.
In just 300 years ago, people were dying at 22 years of age, and people thought that was the human age. You can't last more than 22 years. Today, the average age is about 78. But there is no limit to how much can it be. Because, to some extent, it's hard to imagine, when you say we or you and I, what makes us us is what? Is it when we get our knee replaced, are we still the same person? right? When we get our hip replaced, are we still the same person? At what point of time it's not us? So we say our body is changing from being a baby to adults. So it's constantly changing. Our DNAs are passed on to our children. So our DNA lives forever anyway. So what is it that we want when we say we want to live for a long time? What is that we? The we is our memories and our experiences. And even that we are starting to now download on the cloud. So our memory now, guess what happens? I don't remember phone number. Where are they? On my cell phone. Where is cell phone? Storing them on the cloud. Our decision making, we are no longer making decisions. Google Maps says make a left turn. I make a left turn. It says go straight. We go straight. So my point is, we are starting to upload all of our brain to somewhere else now. What if that can now brain be uploaded into a different human body? Could it be a different person? And what if that body doesn't have to be biological anymore? What if it's non-biological body? Is it not us anymore? Right. So my point is, you have to start thinking about, if we get an artificial heart, are we no longer the same person that we used to be? What if we get the new kidney? Are we no longer the same person we used to be?
Yeah.
At what point in time we say it's not me anymore?
Yeah. At the point that you say it, I guess. So before, we've got to actually do all those transplants and then ask the person, are you still you? And if they say yes, then you're like, oh, well, no, they're still them.
Well, that's my point, is that at some point of time, the robot that will learn to be you. And when you ask it, is it Rory? It's going to, yep, that's me.
So what happens when you do a gut transplant? Do they do that?
So they do, which is called essentially called fecal matter transplant, which is taking a poop from one person and planting them in another. That's called microbial transplant, right? But they do that today. And that is what makes us who we are. So when we transplant the microbes from one person to another person, interesting thing happens. If you take the microbes from a person well, interestingly, they did that, and they took a microbes from a person who was depressed. The new person became depressed.
Wow.
Right? So my point is now, is it the original person, or is it the person whose poop it came from? So, could we say that we really are our shit? Right? The shit we...
Perfect. I like that. I am my shit. Everything you see about me is a function of my shit. Lovely.
Exactly.
People have always said to me, Ruri, you believe your own shit. Is that...
Yeah. And the answer is yes, because that's what makes us who we are, right? What I tell people is that a lot of people in this world are so full of bullshit. I think the money is not in bullshit. Money is in the human shit.
Excellent. In the future of that. Yeah. So, going on a bit about you came into to America, and what was the first main company that you started? And maybe
I've been in this. I was working in Silicon Valley for a long period of time, and then I've been in the Pacific Northwest now. I worked with Bill Gates when the Microsoft was a very small company at that time, tiny company. That was about 25 years ago, and then I've been started this in my 7th business, and I've done several. And no two companies that I start are ever in the same industry, because my belief is once you become good at something, you can only improve it incrementally. So if you want to disrupt an industry completely, you have to go out and essentially use the knowledge of one industry and apply that to a completely different industry, and you're able to challenge the foundation.
This is something I want to talk about because I love this. And if I could transport that, the confidence that you talk about that into other people's brains through this podcast, then I could really help them see with their own blinders. So many people, they say, I'm trapped, I'm caught. Let's just paint a picture, right? Most people are probably drinking too much for a reason, and maybe dissatisfied with life, or not achieving those life goals, or doesn't have the meaning or purpose. Okay, and we found that when you start to steer them towards meaning and purpose and values and get them aligned along with another tribe, exponential things happen. Okay.
Yes.
But so many people, or I certainly was like this at points in my life, see where they are and then can't see a way across from it. And what you're talking about is the fact that you set up a business and then jump into a totally different area because you recognize there are similar traits required, similar mindsets. Tell me a bit more about that, about the confidence of changing?
So interesting thing is that the technology is making it easier for any one of us to be able to do things that only the large companies could do before. That means there is no longer the monopoly on the information that's available only to the certain few. Remember, in the old days, only the people who were rich, their voices and their opinions could be heard through the broadcast media. So you had to be the king or queen to have an opinion, because that's the only opinion that could be heard by everyone. And then, became the people who own the media. Today, you and I can single-handedly destroy a company. Think about the thing. When one woman goes out and say enough is enough, that got the CEO of Uber fired. Right? One person's the thing that says, I had enough of it now, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, the most powerful people are falling because a common man that was considered a common man is now have the same power than the most powerful man did. Right?
Awesome.
So when someone look at the thing, is someone who grew up with no food to eat can land on the moon and become the fourth superpower. What stops any one of us from doing anything we want?
Yeah.
Right? That means not only we become the first company ever to do so, we are the only company in the universe that has permission to land on the moon. But beyond all that, point is, a small group of people, when we land on the moon, that is symbolic of same thing as a 4 minute a mile. The humans thought we could not run a mile under 4 minutes until the first person proved that it could be done.
Yeah.
The 30 people did that the year after. So think about that for a second. So all it takes is one person to say it is possible. And that means you and I, what we're talking about is, as opposed to essentially confining ourselves to, I know nothing about this thing, that I can never do this. And worse yet, surrounding yourself with people who are constantly pulling you down. Oh, yes. Rory, you can never do that. Yeah. You are not capable of doing that. You are a drunk bastard. What will you ever do? You'll amount to nothing in your life. Your friends, your parents, everybody around you are saying you just are no good. What if you instead of doing anything else, first thing you should make is a new year resolution. I'm going to get rid of every single person from my life who is actually laughs at my ambition and people who are negative around me. Because you and I are average of our 10 people we surround yourself with. So make a new year resolution that says, fuck it. I am going to only talk to the people who are going to build me up, who are going to tell me, Rory, you can do anything you want. And I'm going to surround myself with the people who have a mindset of abundance. And then I'm going to go out and go make it happen. Because me, right, you and I.
That's step one for everyone. Step one, get rid of the bastards.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Step one. Now, step two, what's next for anyone taking over the world?
So once you get rid of the people who are around you, who are negative, people who are pulling you down, people who are constantly telling you can't do it, amazing things will happen. That you start to surround yourself with the people that will essentially allow you to grow yourself. They're giving you the confidence, they're giving you the knowledge. And once you put out a goal for the universe that this is what I want to do with my life, the universe will align itself to bring the people around you to make that happen, right? So it's amazing things happen. When I said that I'm going to make illness optional, I start to hear from people around the world and say, I want to help you. That's a worthy goal. I want to be part of that journey, right? And that's what you start to see, that suddenly your eyes start to open up to every possibility. And the people that you never thought you wanted to talk to them suddenly become the part of your group. And you together are doing things that you never thought you would ever be leading.
Brilliant.
All it takes a leader to say, this is what we are going to do. And if you notice, it is not the people who are an average. The disruption happens at the edges. It's done by the craziest of the people. The fact people tell you you're crazy, that means you're onto something good and big. So let those crazies be the one that will change the world.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that too. Get rid of people. Have a mission. Don't be afraid to be crazy. Awesome.
Yes.
Any other tips for somebody trying to go against the grain and start something new?
Again, is that you only fail when you give up. So never ever give up. Every idea that you have may or may not work. And every idea that does not work is simply a stepping stone to a different idea and a bigger idea. So use every idea that has not worked simply as a stepping stone to think even bigger until you get to a point and say, I'm going to land on the fucking moon.
Brilliant. When are you going to land on the moon, Naveen?
Next year.
When are you going to land on the moon?
So that is going to be probably, I would say, 5 to 10 years is my guess. That in next 5 years, we as humans are going to start making a regular trip to the moon. And I think there is going to be a child born on the moon where the parents are going to be looking up and saying, son, we come from that planet, right? That blue planet that's floating around up into space. Because, interesting thing is when we talk about space, it's all relative. So if we live on Earth, the moon looks like it's in the space. But if you were living on the moon, the Earth will be space, right?
Very true. They'll be looking up at Earth.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Exactly. One day I want to go there.
Exactly.
Very soon. So rounding up, what's your relationship like with alcohol?
So, I don't drink much. So I have my relationship is what I would say is very cordial relationship. Every couple of months we go out on a date and we have a glass of wine every so often. But, I keep that distance and it keeps our love affair really going strong. So as long as they don't get too close to me, I don't get too close to them, and life is really good.
Awesome. Was it always like that?
There was time I probably would have drank a little bit more. I probably have, a couple of times in my life where I drank more than I would have liked to drink. And to me, that was a lesson in my life that I love who I am. Why would I ever want to change that to be something that I hate in the morning being, right? So to me, the biggest change that was that saying, I love my life. I love everything about me, and I don't want that to change, because the minute you take alcohol, you are, to some extent, stop becoming you. Your microbiome is changing. That means you're no longer you anymore, right? Yeah. So I love the feeling of being in control, being who I am. And if everyone who has any addiction to alcohol should start to think about it, fall in love with yourself. Don't fall in love with something you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's about getting more focused on you and looking after you. And we are absolutely all over that at 1 Year No Beer. So now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. But if your moonshot was to transform the world's relationship with alcohol, how would you go about achieving it?
The first thing I would do would be I would surround myself with people and the tribe who all have the same mission and the same goal. And number two things I would do would be not just focused on myself, I would be focused on helping someone else change their relationship. Because once you give something to someone without expectations of getting anything back, the amount of pleasure and happiness and satisfaction you're going to get is going to be that much love that you will change your relationship with your addiction if you can help someone else change the relationship with their addiction.
That's exactly what 1 Year No Beer is all about. Awesome. Any other ways you would go about doing it?
And obviously would be to really change your microbiome, because to some extent the addiction comes from your gut, right? So really, to some extent understanding what's happening inside your body. And again, I'm not trying to sell you Viome, but Viome is really the only technology today that allows you to look in depth what's going on inside your body and change your microbiome by personalizing what food you need to keep those microbes in balance. And again, even if it wasn't my company, I would still be recommending you to do that, because to large extent, no point treating our body like a black box. Your body, if you had pimples inside on your face, you would be running up and down trying to fix it.
Yeah.
But you have pimples inside you called inflammation.
Yeah.
That inflammation is always there. What if I can show you the pimples inside your body? And once you look at those pimples and say, I need to fix them. And that's what I'm trying to do. Viome allows you to look at those pimples inside your body and tells you exactly what you need to do to fix those pimples.
What does Viome stand for?
So it came from the two words, Y, which was life, and omics was science. So idea was science of life was Viome. But being an Indian, I can't pronounce the word we. And don't ask me why would I name a company that I can't pronounce.
Viome. That's cool. Yes, so I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to get this Viome thing now. I'll do it in the community and show you guys how to do it. If anybody wants to come and join me doing it, I'll be doing viome.com/OAMB is we'll get you guys registered under I think there's a discount there. We'll check. Naveen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much. How do we find out more about you and how do we get more involved in what you're up to?
Well, you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you can also email it to me. So if any one of you want to talk to me and have an email, my email is my first name, Naveen, Naveen, .Jain, Jain, @gmail.com. So email it to me. I read all my emails myself, and I'll be more than happy to do anything I can to help you.
That's the second time I've heard you say that. You must be a very busy man on email.
Now, I do get, close to probably 500 to 700 emails a day, but I respond to every one of them unless you're just simply sending an email to say hello.
Wow, that's amazing. So there you go. Email Naveen, tell him what you're up to, and get inspired right now. Naveen, thank you so much for having you on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Such an inspiring interview. I hope you got as much from that as I got from interviewing Naveen, because... well, I'm sure you will have. He's so inspiring. Some of the stuff which really makes me reflect with Naveen, and if you want some more of this, just Google Naveen. He's got his own loads of YouTube videos, and is how he's behaved with his family, with his own children. I find that very inspiring. 2 kids myself, he's whilst he's been wildly successful, he talks about how to translate that success so that he still creates a hunger and a need and a want for changing and creating impact in his own children, when actually they've been sort of, if you like, given things on a plate. Really worth having a listen into that stuff. So we're now week 3 into dry January, and hopefully you're absolutely loving it. If you're not loving your alcohol-free journey right now, then you're not joining 1 Year No Beer.
And you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Come and join us. Join us at oneyearnobeer.com. We will help you, and our tens of thousands of members all over the world will support you through your journey. If you are one of our members and you are struggling through dry January, then reach out into the community, say hi. We're here to help you, absolutely to support you, whatever. Cool. Well, that's it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in for another awesome. Can I say awesome? My mum usually tells me off every time I say awesome.
Overused awesome.
She says, right, so
we're only on the 3rd episode.
3rd. Okay, so if I say awesome too many times, there must be a penalty, like, burpees?
Yeah.
50 burpees. Okay. You guys decide when I need to do 50 burpees, but general awesome is out.
You said it again.
50 burpees. All right, see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the 1 Year No Beer podcast. For a full list of episodes and to join in the challenge yourself, head on over to oneyearnobeer.com. oneyearnobeer.com.